Hey guys, how you going? VaulSC here. We're going to take a look at a game of infiNity today featuring my Ikari. It's going to be the second outing with them. The unusual thing about this particular game, though, is that it will be between Ikari and both PanO and Caledonia. So the background behind that is that a couple of my friends were trying to organize a bit of a get-together game on a Sunday at our local gaming store, and that got called off because there was a 40k tournament happening or something like that, not enough space. So they decided to come around to my place, and rather than one person sitting there and watching, we decided to rig it so that I would play with a 300-point Ikari force, and the other guys would have like one battle group each. So it'd be 300-point army sharing command tokens, but made up of PanO units and Caledonia units. Now, you might say it's not really fair on me because the PanO player can just cherry pick the best things from PanO, like a NIST sniper and a bulleteer and a crocman, forward observer, and the hacker and lieutenant. And the Caledonia player can have the volunteers link team, the grey rifle, Cameronian, SAS trooper, without having to, take a lot of inefficient stuff. So yes, it's a disadvantage to me, but I'm the host. I'm having people around. We're just having a good time, and I'm going to let you guys know how the game went anyway. So somehow PanO have joined forces with Caledonia for this one to drive back the evil of the Ikari mercenaries or something like that. We're going to play a game of Supremacy. So let me just draw out the map and show you how it looks. So we'll just grab, I don't know, the blue here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, actually, I've misdrawn that. Objectives, which you're going to have to go and capture. Excuse me. And the board is drawn into the 4 quadrants, of course. So at the end of every game round, if you can pick up more of these quadrants than the opposing side, then you get 2 points over them. So a maximum of 6 points throughout the game, and then there's 1 point for each of these consoles contested or having had the button pressed on them at some point during the game. If you and your opponent both press the same button throughout the game at some point, then there's a bit of a whip check roll off, and the Intel com card can come into that. But really, it's a game of preferably trying to get second turn if you can, and just moving into exactly the right number of zones at the end, and even having 1 point higher than what your opponent has in the zone is enough to gain the additional bonus. So it's really, really good for second turn. I'm playing the exact same list that I played last time, so I think I've got that floating around on my desktop somewhere, actually. This is a list which I put together recently, which I quite like. The only change that I decided to make to it for today's game is to actually swap the Yuan Yuan into the second group. So the Yuan Yuan's going into the second group and the Fugazi is going into group 1. And that's because I'm not really going to get many situations where I'm going to spend that many orders on a Yuan Yuan. Usually it's just going to trade for somebody and put a smoke down, whereas I need every regular order that I can get, to be honest, on the Tanko and Brawler Link team. So that's the only change that I've really made. Okay, so let's get into some deployment. So unluckily, I have lost the lieutenant role, and my opponents, plural, have chosen to take the second turn, so I will get the table side and get to deploy second, and I will be going first in this case. So you can see the Tanko is about to make use of a couple of spots. He can either move to the top of this building, and this color's not so great. I'm going to go with red. So we can move to the top of this building here or to the side there, and we'll sort of see that's kind of important. There are a few areas here where he's getting large sight lines for that. Everybody else is just hunkered down in the stairwell. So there's the Kaisotsu, another Kaisotsu here, Kaisotsu hacker, the Brawler Lieutenant. We've got the Palbot here attached to the dock back here, which is the Tokusetsu dock. The Wuming with Panzerfaust covering this left-hand flank zone line here. Pathfinder, better to move around the corner and go to the objective, which is placed around about there. The right-hand flank, you can see the Tanko Haris team ready to go with their Brawler MSV2 sticking out there. The Ninja right next to the objective as well. Rushi heading down the right-hand flank after, the Yuan Yuan and the Desperado drop a bit of a smoke grenade there. Plus the Fugazi right at the back with a little bit of a line inways to get his flash pulse going. Okay, enemy territory now. territory now. We've got a HVT deployed there. We've got a volunteers link team. So there's the Grey Rifle and one of his friends here, another friend over here, and a couple more of them on the stairwell, just precariously at the edge of an 8-inch radius for the zone of control. There's also a PanO hacker there. This, I believe, is a PanO doctor, I think. Although they were using a few proxies, it's quite hard for me to remember what's what. PanO Bulleteers are, of course, something not really available to Caledonia, but there you go. Another volunteer hiding in the bushes there. Got a bit of a Cameronian right next to a Cataran sniper from Caledonia. There's a Warcore there on the PanO side, an engineer here, and I think that's the lieutenant there. Oh, I've already seen the Bulleteer. Okay. Extreme right-hand side of that, there's some Caledonia model there. I can't quite remember what it was. And then you can see the Warcore, Cameronian, Cataran, Bulleteer just from the other side. Note that this big building here is where the PanO missile launcher is able to get to the top of. So he's going to have some serious views over to the enemy lines there, and really will make his missile launcher valuable. Reserve model for these guys is the NIS sniper prone on top of this crate. Can't see directly to my deployment zone, but there are some pretty serious angles. So if I'm going to go and harass him, I'm going to need to take this guy out earlier on. My reserve model was a Desperado on the right-hand flank, but the first thing I'm going to be doing is impetuous with the Yuan to try and land here. This is being contested by his hacker, but I managed to roll well enough to deploy the Yuan successfully, and that's going to allow him to move out around here and hit his chain rifle into the to the NIS. There's the Desperado moving impetuously up the flank as well, not moving into line of sight of anybody, but he'll also be able to lay a smoke grenade down there after the NIS sniper's dealt with, of course, because NIS can see through smoke with MSV2. Yuan, moving through here to get in range of both this guy here and this guy here. Grey Rifle and this trooper, very expensive troops, and the Yuan's only 8. My opponents here made a bit of a mistake by opting to shoot with the NIS rather than dodging, but despite that mistake, the chain rifle has no effect because he passes the armor save, and the Ikari guy here is shot by the NIS in return. So that is a failed attempt there from the old Yuan. So if you look at the top right of the photo, we've got a Desperado here, having thrown a smoke grenade down into that little angle next to the truck. That's going to allow me to put assist fire on the Rushi and move up through here. So I do have this link team here. I'd rather just not commit them yet. I'd rather commit them turn 2 once the penalty, the 2-order penalty for them command tokens cleared, and give them a full run up the flank. But the Rushi should be able to do a bit of work. So this is the first and most risky of the shootouts, although it's still heavily favored to me. Just moving up here through to the cover of this truck here. And this is quite squarely within a 24-inch range of that sniper there. And because the smoke grenade's there, he's not going to get shot at by anybody other than the sniper. So if anybody else comes out ahead in deployment, just won't have line of sight. So the Rushi needing 15s on 4 dice with shock ammo, and the NIS firing back with 13 on 1 dice. So potentially that could go badly, but averages prevail here, and the Rushi does destroy the NIS, which is great. What I can do next is stay right at the edge of the cloud and attempt to shoot his Grey Rifle, which would be crucial. I mean, the fact that he's got him standing up here is a bit of a mistake, because if the Rushi destroys this guy, that link team is going to be a lot weaker, because they're just volunteers, and they won't have that point man with a high ballistic skill and powerful gun. Sadly for me, the bullets bounce off. He does pass his armor save, and he just ducks prone by failing his guts check. So that's a bit of poor luck from me, sadly. Just moving a little bit further across, so basically moving out to a spot for out here, and then moving back to that point here. But from this angle here, I'm able to draw a line directly across to where his Bulleteer is. And the Ruishi is the great tool against the Bulleteer in this spot, just because he ignores the ODD. The Bulleteer can't fire back through the smoke, so the Rushi is highly advantaged here, and does manage to destroy the Bulleteer, but doesn't have enough orders to completely remove it, and he's got his engineer sitting right there, so that's a little bit annoying, and maybe I should have really committed a bit harder. With the last order from Group 1, rather than trying to shoot it again, I'm just moving the Tanko to this spot here because he couldn't deploy there. The deployment zone actually sort of ran across like that, so he had to deploy right in the back there. then moves across to take up position over a large amount of the battlefield, which is really important. Also moving these tankos and the brawler here to a spot where they can also defend against any sort of drops coming that side and anything coming around this side here. Just got a little bit of a setup to help defend against that. There was a coordinated order also involving, a single order from Group 2 where this Wu Ming's positioned. He's just recalibrated his positioning there a little bit just so he can see through this gap. It's going to be quite important for him to help defend that with his Panzerfaust. And he's quite resilient to being shot at, and he's quite cheap as well. Okay, so my opponent attempting to move out with his link team. What's happened here, though, is he's made a mistake where the link team was controlled by this model here, and he attempts to make this the link leader for the purposes of firing a speculative light grenade round at my Rushi and my Desperado, because they're quite close together. But when he attempts to do that, he realizes that his 8-inch radius has actually left out the Grey Rifle, unfortunately. So not only does the shot go astray because he doesn't have the +3, he's now going to have to spend an order moving the Grey Rifle in range and forming the link up and so forth. So a bit of a misplay there by him. So he does move through with his Grey Rifle, and this is a much better strategy than firing the grenade launcher, to be honest. Just moves in and fires at the Rushi with the heavy machine gun and totals it effectively. Elsewhere, the engineer is able to repair the bulleteer, so that's a success also. Bulleteer then able to move from its position around here after receiving assisted fire, and just moving along to this point. Now, the bulleteer is in a group with very few orders, but he's going to be able to fire at the tanker with missile launcher once. So he goes ahead and does that. Tanko is wounded, decides to go prone. I do have a doctor nearby with a Palbot to back him up, but I just don't want to get shot at continually by other models, possibly the Grey Rifle, because he would have the advantage there. Cameronian moving out with his super jumping ability, just coming around to a better spot just to hold off a bit of a deployment zone angle there. He will also be contested by my Wu Ming, as you can see up the top, once he comes a bit further around. The volunteers and Grey Rifle now repositioning and moving up the staircase here just to get into a better position to potentially fire some more light grenades, but just generally camping out on the stairs like that. Attempting to fire some grenades onto the Desperado, but unfortunately for him, missing a lot of his shots. I think he needed to hit on 10s, but didn't get any 10s or lower that managed to crack the armor of the Desperado, so nothing ended up happening there. Ikari turn 2, and at this point, because we can consolidate it a little bit, we're now going to make a push here. Very important. This is probably the most important push, really, of the game for me, is to move out with the Tanko Haris team, with the obviously SMG guy up front, light shotgun guy back here, and the brawler multi-sniper with the ninja positioned in between them. The Desperado, since it survived, is able to put down a smoke grenade there. So, quite importantly, moving around with my brawler here with the multi-sniper and firing at the bulleteer, and getting very unlucky here because the bulleteer seems to actually starts tanking some of my armor saves, and I'm whiffing some of the shots. So it should be really easy to just crush the bulleteer with the multi-sniper through the smoke cloud, but due to some pretty poor dice rolls, I mean, I think I've due them after my previous game, the bulleteer just keeps failing guts and going back around the corner. So it does manage to survive. There's a Cataran in camo state, marker state right here, which I can discover for free, but unfortunately failing my discover roll and can't shoot his Cataran, which is annoying. Then we can move the Desperado a little bit further back, planting a smoke grenade over to here. Because I wasn't really successful with that little alley there, I'm now going to move the link team right around here and try and take out some of these loose members of the volunteers and just strip their team membership down a little bit. All right, now this is the one point in the game where I feel like I really made a mistake, and I think it's more important to focus on plays that you make that could be corrected where you have actually blundered and made a mistake, rather than just focusing on poor dice rolls or lucky dice rolls all the time. And the mistake that I've made here is to use the Desperado to first put down smoke and then bring in the brawler to fire back at these two volunteers out in the open. The reason why it's a mistake is the brawler is firing at 0 range band, so it's 3 dice on 12s, and the guy with a light shotgun on the link team shoots back on 13, -3 for cover, and that's it because he's got 6s level 2. So it's 2 dice on 10s versus 3 dice on 12s. So although I've got an advantage, it's not as big an advantage as if I just not put the smoke grenade there at all, moved in the tanker with SMG to that exact spot instead, and fired at just one volunteer at a time, because the tanker is Blitz skill 13 rather than 12, and he's got 4 dice rather than 3 dice on his SMG, and if he gets hit by the light shotgun, he's got armor 3 and can sustain 2 wounds, so it's less likely to lose a member of the link and break that. So that's a real big blunder, I think, because if you just run into the enemy and lose a model, that's one of the worst things that can happen in your active turn. Whereas if you're picking off models that you need to, your opponent's just got less regular orders for the next turn. You've got a Hari's team in their lines. This is Supremacy, so you need to be able to put points in zones, especially if you're going first, which is a lot harder. During the first game and round, it was drawn up, so no points on the board for either player yet. But this was a real blunder, and he gets lucky here, and the light shotgun destroys the brawler, and I'm in a lot of trouble. So that's my fault. It's completely on me. Moving up with the Tanko, though, and he attempts to fire at the Bulleteer, using his strength of position here and cover, and there's 2 dice in the active turn, and he does manage to blow up the Bulleteer, so that's at least a little bit of something going on. I don't know if you guys can see the Bulleteer in the photo right here. Okay, so that's how he is, and then very importantly, he just returns to his position right here, and not at this position here, but right here, because quite crucially, he wants to cover an angle like this. And this part of the building here is blocking off line to a lot of stuff down here. So crucially, the way I've actually positioned the Tanko will prevent him from being able to move the grey rifle around into cover and fire at my my Tanko. But anybody showing up out in the open here to attack my other Tankos in the former Hari's team will be subject to that missile launcher. So I've found a really good spot for him to hang out in. Also decided to run away with my Desperado, just because he's quite an important model with that smoke grenade. Just coming back here, because he's also helping to contest my quadrant through here. It's a couple of Tankos in his quadrant along this side, but we're playing Supremacy, and things are about to get quite precarious with the zones. Another little look at the left-hand flank here, where I've still got a Wu Ming. So this is turn 2 for the opposition. There is a Cameronian super jumping up here. He gets shot at by the Panzerfaust, but of course he's got total immunity, and he tanks the armor save, so the Cameronian really happy. Okay, so Grey Rifle in Volunteer Link team, perfectly intact at the moment because I was just really unsuccessful with my push. Throws down a smoke grenade to block the incoming line of sight from the Tanko from this side of the battlefield. So he's going to be able to move around here and get through the smoke and appear on the other side of the truck where he'll attack my team. So that's what he's doing now, just moving into that smoke grenade. Okay, so the brawler's down, but the Tanko's there. So he decides to move his light shotgun guy just really carefully outside of the zone at one point to try and start engaging shots. He's got 3 shots at me, and I can fire back on maybe a 16 with my SMG. So it does take him a while, but eventually gets to a point where he can continue shooting and shooting and shooting and using orders, and he eventually cracks that Tanko, which just leaves the other guy to deal with. So he's eventually got to bring around the Grey Rifle to fire at me. I can still fire back with my light shotgun or even my Blitzen at 0 range band on a 13, but he's got a serious weight of power here. It's also really important that I reposition some of his guys because they're going to get into a lot of trouble if they leave themselves in line of sight of the missile launcher when it becomes my turn and the smoke clears. Now, unbelievably, the Tanko rolls really, really well with his shot. And I think firing the light shotgun this was, and it actually takes out the Grey Rifle. Now the Grey Rifle does have dogged, but he doesn't want to lose the Grey Rifle, so he opts to go for unconscious. And this is a bit of a risk, and he's going to move his Paramedic in to try and revive his Grey Rifle. So this is extremely risky. So Paramedic decides to go for it after the light shotgun volunteer moves in. They do finally take out the Tanko, at great risk. But when the Paramedic pictured up the top right here comes in to try and revive the the grey rifle just completely fails it and the grey rifle dies, is removed. So that's pretty awful. We may have missed it as the Fusilier hacker just very quietly came into the objective here and secured this one. So in the event of a draw, that's actually really going to help him win some points. So quite a good move there. All right, but eventually the tanko was destroyed by incoming fire. Now, of course, my turn, because I'd positioned my tanko quite well, I can now move a little bit further forward just to gain line of sight to some of the volunteers, which are now completely stranded. All I can really do is dodge. The tanko's hitting on 19s with the help of the link team, and he blows up 2 of them straight away, which works really quite well. Desperado comes screaming along the flank again. There's 2 of them alive, fires the assault pistols into one of them to clear one of them out. And that works quite successfully. And then moving in a little bit closer to attack the other one. I think the chain rifle was used here, so a bit of a trade-off. And the Desperado, although destroyed here, does manage to rip up the volunteer in a trade. Okay, time for the ninja to move out. Ninja moving through to here, wasting a few orders, but eventually managing to tick the console and pick that one up. This is my last turn, mind you. Then coming to just barely within 8 inches of this Fusilier and destroying her with a red rum. I thought about crossing the gap here, but there is a Cataran sniper which would shoot me, and I don't really have enough orders to go into Mark Estate and move across. So tanko positioned there. You can see that there's a Pathfinder which has moved around to the spot. Just pressing the button on this one as well, so that I've got 2 consoles versus my opponent's 1 console. It should be tied in terms of quadrants at the end of the game, so I'm just trying to push for either a draw or a win on the consoles. So other people repositioning, we're actually moving up now with some of the Kaisotsus, the Brawler Kaisotsu moving out here, just to help defend, keep them all out of the deployment zone into the quadrant. That's going to be quite important for scoring. Cameronian now in the final turn of the game, moving through, again being shot at by a Panzerfaust, I believe a Flash Pulse. There's a Brawler here firing at him, but my opponent just passing every single armor save from the Cameronian. It turns out to be fine. We have a Croc-Mad and Hin deployment on their side of the table, moving through to capture their objective, so that seals the draw for the enemy team. What are we looking at over here? I forget. Oh, there was a doctor over here which fires its medikit at this Caledonian model here to try and revive it, which would help him secure points, but that fails quite awfully, and he misses. Cameronian launching his chain rifles into my Pathfinder, which nukes it, still passing all armor saves from the Kaisotsus. We have a SAS trooper trying to fire at the Kaisotsu as well, but Kaisotsu quite well defended here with a 5-man link team, manages to shrug that one off. Eventually Cameronian jumping down, then jumping back up again to try and throw his chain rifles into the mix, but by the end of it, we tally up the points. He's got an SAS and a Cameronian to my zone, whereas I had a Brawler, Kaisotsu, and a tanko, and worked out to be a higher number of points for that particular quadrant. So the game is a draw at the very end of it. So an entertaining game. You might well say that, again, it wasn't a very fair game, because if you're allowed to cherry pick the best units from PanO Vanilla and from Caledonia and make link teams out of them, and that's up against just Ikari, then of course the other side has an advantage. I got lucky in some places, but quite unlucky in others. Yeah, I mean, the Ryushi was expected to kill the Ness, but it was also expected to destroy the Bulleteer as well, and that didn't quite happen, did it? Or the Brawler should have been able to kill it with his multi-sniper rifle. Made a mistake with my attack. I'm also starting to think that I might be better off trying, at least trialing, a Haris team with 2 Woomings, so just the chain rifle, submachine gun Haris guy, the HMG guy, and then the Brawler multi-sniper rifle, because that way when I move around in a bit of a second turn push with them, that HMG is going to have a much higher likelihood of clearing things out efficiently compared to anything else, and I'd still have the BS-30 in there, I'd still have the SMG there, and it would add a chain rifle. That's one thing that this little group's lacking, is they don't have that direct template defense, which can be so useful for a Haris team. So that's what I'm going to be trying out next. Hopefully you guys stick around and check out any future bat reps that I'm playing with Ikari, because they're continuing to evolve, and damn, really enjoying them. So hope you guys are as well. See you soon.